Hey, DawgNation, I'm Brandon Adams. It's time now once again for Gimme 5. My turn to do that again here this week. Thanks for tolerating my answers after getting the expert answers from guys like Mike Griffith and Connor Riley and Jeff Sentell in the previous weeks. Obviously, each and every week here at DawgNation, we try to answer 5 questions. One of those we answer on video. And I got a great question that I want to spend a couple of seconds on here right now. Let me show you the tweet, and then I'll give you my answer to it. Mike P. Simmons writes in to say, how does the Georgia fan base keep realistic expectations for the program given our recent success? He says nobody can win the national title every single year, so the expectation levels, he says, which is basically what the expectation levels are right here at the moment. Now, I think that's a really interesting question, and I got a couple of thoughts on this, and then I want to give you kind of a practical piece of advice, if you don't mind. Here's my first thought. Here is how I think you maintain realistic expectations, because Georgia right now is having an unrealistic level of success. For what realistic is for most teams, right now Georgia's already greatly exceeded what would be realistic even for like high level, top flight programs. Georgia has had already more success than that, and in future years they might have even more success. So, it's certainly fair to say that, wow, Georgia is about to enjoy or is in the midst of enjoying an uncommon level of success. And the word enjoy there, I think, is really important. You want to make sure as a fan, I want to make sure as a fan, because that's what I am too, you want to make sure to enjoy as much of that as you possibly can. Now, here's how I try to do it. I try to keep 2 things in mind. Thing number 1 is the past is completely irrelevant. And what I mean by that is last year, I think there were a lot of Georgia fans, if they were being honest, as Georgia was trying to break a drought of having not won a national championship in 40 years, or 40-plus years, and having some bad recent memories of seasons that looked like they might end in championship success, or even games in which they thought might result in a championship, and yet somehow, some way, kind of got away from UGA. It sort of slipped away. There's this heartbreaking defeat. And there were a lot of Georgia fans who kind of lived last year with the thought of eventually something bad was going to happen to Georgia. And that unwillingness to kind of buy in wholeheartedly, I think actually prevented them from enjoying last season as much as they possibly could, keeping in mind all the things that had happened in the past and sort of the torture that Georgia had been through with whatever, anytime you're close but no cigar, there's going to be some scar tissue there, some bad memories. I think that some Georgia fans had too much of that in their mind last season, and along the way towards watching Georgia break through and win a national championship, some Georgia fans may have been expecting the worst to happen, and therefore they may have missed just how well this team was coming together, and ultimately the past kind of got them in some trouble. So one of the things I try to remember is, in any given moment, the past is irrelevant. It does not determine how Georgia's going to perform in any given moment. And here's the other thing I try to keep in mind. The future is very difficult to predict. See, we see this sometimes on both the positive and the negative. Last year, going to the college football playoff, there were a lot of Georgia fans who thought, Georgia's not going to win the national championship. They can't beat Alabama because we just saw the SEC championship game and it did not go well. And the past obviously proved very difficult to predict because the people who said that turned out to be wrong. There's also a version of that on the positive side too, where I hear from some Georgia fans and they say, hey, as good as Georgia is right now, we believe because so-and-so is coming back and so-and-so is coming back and so-and-so is coming back, that Georgia may even be better in 2023. And that might be true, but just the same way that for the wrong reasons, sometimes the past, or I should say the future isn't easy to predict, sometimes when it comes to good things that you think are going to happen, the future also proves pretty difficult to predict because Alabama fans thought coming into this season they were going to be a shoo-in to win the national championship, and yet as it stands right now, they're not even going to make the college football playoff, and they're definitely not playing in the SEC championship. Once again, proving the point here that when you are pretty sure of how the future is going to be, the future has a way of surprising you. In other words, the only thing that truly matters is what's happening right now. And the moment that Georgia's trying to take advantage of, as we say around here, tries to go for 2 in 22. So the best way to have the appropriate expectations, I think, is to live in the present tense as much as possible and be kind of present state aware of just how much fun all of this is. And this is where I kind of get to like the practical reality part of this, or maybe some practical advice. If you want to have more fun with Georgia football, I think you need to connect more with people face-to-face in real life. Not saying that you're not. I don't know if you are or not. But for anybody who says, hey, I want to have realistic expectations, I want to appreciate what's happening for Georgia, what's the best strategy for doing that? I think you ought to have at least as many conversations face-to-face with Georgia fans as you have online, and maybe you should even have multiples of conversations face-to-face than you do online. And I'm not trying to trash the online conversation or say there's something wrong with message boards or social media, but I do notice this, is that for some reason the digitized form of conversation has a tendency to veer into the negative in a way that the face-to-face conversations have a tendency not to. So if you're a fan and you typically watch the games at home, maybe invite some friends over, or maybe go out to a bar and watch a game with some Georgia fans there. Find a way to be with other Georgia fans and allow their excitement, their enjoyment to be contagious. Because here's what I'll tell you. The game for me in Starkville this past Saturday, and yes, I know I'm lucky enough to be able to go to the games. Not everybody can do that, but I'm thankful that I can, obviously because of my work. But the Georgia fans I spent time around before the game on Saturday were just a great group of people to be around. They were genuinely having fun watching this team, genuinely proud to be able to travel on the road to see them. It's an example of how the face-to-face conversations as it relates to Georgia fans often feel. Georgia fans just have a tendency to express the right level of positive emotion when you're talking to them face-to-face, and for almost anybody in any category, you put them online, that has a tendency to sort of change. So if you want to kind of have an appropriate appreciation for how good Georgia is and sort of a realistic expectation for how much better Georgia is than everybody else and just how special this period of Georgia football is, find a way to be face-to-face with folks. Find a way to celebrate alongside with them, either in your living room or in a bar or at the stadium itself, and understand that the future's not guaranteed, the past is irrelevant, but the moments we're experiencing right now, no matter how this season ends, this is a pretty special time to be a Georgia fan. Thanks for being here as a part of our Gimme 5, and hope you enjoy the rest of the questions and answers, which obviously you can check out online at DawgNation.com.